Good afternoon, everyone. Sean Buchanan again at Equal Start, and we have an esteemed guest, Mr. Graham House, who I met at the Disruptors Network in September. And how he came to my notice is he made a grandiose speech about social workers becoming social leaders and how they're viewed by government in order to influence policy and get their just desserts going forward. So I've invited him on today to see how he can help the people decide how we move forward as a collective. So, Mr. House, can you tell us a bit about yourself for all those who are not aware of you?
Of course, yeah, Sean. And please, Graham, please.
Mm.
That'll be more comfortable for me. Thank you. It's good to see you again. Um, as much as you sort of beat me up there, as you know, on this pedestal, I put it back on you. Actually, it was the reason why I was at that event. I don't know, 6 weeks or so ago, is because the work that you and the team there do directly shapes our society, positively or negatively. The impact it has, positively or negatively, especially on young people. And that ultimately, if we get that right or improve it, and you're better supported, better funded, better educated, better trained, we want the impact to be greater because that contributes to a more resilient, socially aware society, which allows us to deliver to our true potential as people.
Sure.
So that's I put that back on you. You very much I found you to be a very inspirational guy, not just in the professional world you do, but in some of the personal challenges that you're entangled in. That gives you a lived experience, which is tough for many to get through that. I appreciate that. And you seem to have got through to a learned experience where you can apply that knowledge in a very purposeful way. So this is how change happens
Yeah,
for
it's
a
true.
greater good. You find people like you who are very humble, um, in the trenches, getting on with it. And I'm very
Try to.
proud to have met you that way. So yeah, it's more about. So my background, briefly, to answer your question, I spent 30 plus years in the armed forces. I wanted to be an astronaut. I still expect to be an astronaut. I might have to make my own rocket ship, but that's what I'm going to get.
That'd be great. That'd be great. We need that in
Uh,
the UK.
and I guess the positive out of my experience in life, if there is one to take, maybe as a sort of beacon for other young people, is I went through to the part of my teens. I went through the British education system, failed all my exams, everything,
Yes.
and yeah, and hit sort of age 16, being told by a system and people in the system that there wasn't really much for me because I'd failed everything. I wasn't showing any potential or prospect. But because I didn't believe that and didn't believe them, somehow I had enough self belief to follow my own path. I joined the military right at the bottom of the rank structure, um, with very limited responsibility. Went to night school to study the things that interested me, to get the qualifications I needed to fly. Was lucky enough with the people I met to be given support and guidance in how to achieve what I wanted. Was eventually selected for pilot training in the Air Force. Eventually became a frontline operational pilot. Supported most of the sort of modern day operations in the world today, Afghanistan and Iraq and everywhere else in the world. I'm very privileged to have supported, managed, led, commanded some of the most courageous people on the planet to do some extraordinary things,
Hmm.
whilst also being involved directly and closely with government to see how strategy, power, and intent can be slewed and drifts to cause incredible damage and catastrophic consequences for what I would call normal people in foreign lands. I think we can do better than that. So a lot of those experiences led me to work more closely with government, more senior leaders, to try and better understand what is it in our formative years that goes wrong, that makes us weak, insecure, ineffective, whilst giving a layer of accomplishment and qualification when actually we just can't communicate, we can't problem solve, we're not compassionate, we're quite destructive, and that causes damage to the younger generation. So
Yes, I agree.
that comes us full circle back to the conference that you spoke of, the disruptive leaders.
Mhm.
This isn't disruptive leaders that we want to cause a revolution, not necessarily, but disruption to me is about thinking differently, seeing things differently, and asking more focused questions that get us towards the truth in a collaborative way, not in a destructive way, but in a deliberate way in order to improve things for the greater good. And I really say all of that because I look at my 11-year-old self who needs that. You know,
Mhm.
and those 11-year-olds today all around the world, they're needing people like you to guide them during their pathway through their own lifetime. So
That's
that's
true. I
why
agree.
it's privileged to stay in touch with you, privileged to meet you. Very inspirational in the work that you're doing. That's it. Keep going.
Yeah, I noticed when looking into your background, you had spent a time as a special integrity advisor for a committee, APPG committee. How did you come about that? Because I found that very interesting.
Well, so what? So yeah, what's in that context? I guess this is how power works. You need to understand or try to understand power, how it works, how it doesn't work as well,
Mhm, mhm,
how it's wanting to work. And I guess my generation, I'm fairly unique in this regard. And this is where the integrity matters, I think. It's a rare currency. Uh, we would like to think we strive for it, but rarely do we ever attain it because of other pressures and part of our formative years get in the way sometimes. It's not easy. Um, but I guess my generation grew up in what we would call the analog age. And then at a certain part in our lifetime, we jumped into the digital age. So we're the first generation ever, and will be the only generation ever to have two reference points.
mhm. That's true.
We saw the old world, we see the new world.
Well, mm,
Whereas the younger generation today, anyone who's under 25, 30, um, also pioneering because they've grown up in the digital age. They're the first generation ever to grow up in the digital age.
mhm,
But every generation evermore will only have that reference.
mhm, mhm.
So when I look at my generation with actually what I would call values based thinking, we've just commemorated Remembrance Day, for example, both on Remembrance Sunday and
Yeah,
on the 11th, Armistice Day.
yeah.
It always reminds me of uh, what would you fight for? What's worth fighting for? What isn't? How would you fight? Um, and to what values base would you apply that humankind? What's your values? And I kind of guess that generation post war, and especially when you look at through your ancestral lines and you go back to the Commonwealth, for example,
Mhm.
and those characters that, I was in Africa in the early part of this year at a war memorial in Kenya. It's
Okay.
astonishing to think these characters stepped up to support Britain in its time of need, and yet they're 8,000 miles away on the other side of the equator. That's the strength of humankind. If you can bring people together to a common purpose, that's incredibly impressive for humankind. And I guess that generation reminds me of a sense of values that over the years of the digital age, that's being eroded. We're going this way when I think we need to go that way. So your character, the work that you do, the fact you're even creating this broadcast to influence people, that tells me there's a passion there, there's a
Yeah,
purpose
definitely,
there,
definitely.
and as long as, to me, as long as that there are people like you around, then there's hope to recover that values base from where it is to where it needs to be, bring it back to a central position. So that's really how that came to be about. There was an element in Parliament that felt there's an erosion of integrity, an erosion of standards, an erosion of values. A small group was set up going back a few years. I was invited, I'm very privileged to be part of that in a really, really small way.
Mhm.
It's got momentum. People far more impressive than me are part of that and continuing to be part of that. I'm much more, I'm less able than many are and more passive because of that. But there are people that make a real difference in the positive sense. And they don't, or you don't always hear about them, and they don't really make the headlines, but they're
Yeah,
there.
they don't. That's why I created this unheralded hero section of Equal Start, because I said that I've realized a lot of the preconceptions I had about how the political process and the lobbying groups. I said, oh, it's people being paid off, or they got special interests from corporate entities that are not always work in conduce and cohesion with normal people. Like when I went
Exactly.
in there, I found, say, people like yourselves. They said they're actually nice people and they have got a real passion, but no one really knows about them, and they don't really seek the limelight. So people kind of lose hope because people need figureheads. I guess, like saying
Well,
where everyone knows Winston Churchill in the World War when he used to say that we'll fight them on the beaches and things like that. But a lot of the everyday heroes, you don't see them get that kind of headlines or publicity. So people think, oh, those are only special elite people that get to have their say and be listened to by the majority. So it was very interesting to find, obviously, yourself, especially at the Disruptors Network, traveling all the way from Scotland to come down there in your free time. There's not many people that would be willing to do that. So I found it very interesting when you approached me,
no, I would
considering
do
the
that.
background and that he's a military fella with the Royal Air Force.
Well, it didn't take me long to realise. We can go on and expand on that if you like, but it didn't take me long to realise by listening to you that when I'm looking at young people who need good influence around them, good role models around them, whatever that looks like today, uh, I do believe the military has an important function to play there, a contribution to a sense of values, purpose, duty, teamwork. I think it has a function to play there. But it's going to need people like you in it.
Mm,
Um, because you display those characteristics, but you'll be more relatable to young people in London than I would be.
mm,
Without being disingenuous to you or myself, we have different. We're perceived to be different,
of course.
and young people, for your experience or my experience, to really land well with them, they're going to need influential people around them that are relatable to them. It's going to be difficult for someone like me to walk into a sort of social environment of young people around Hackney, for example, from the Highlands of Scotland,
Mm.
as a
Fair
white
enough. I was there
middle-aged
last
guy to
weekend.
relate to those.
Mm.
Exactly, I got little chance, even though I'd love it. There's loads of barriers to get through of prejudice and bias, myself as well as others. Whereas you cut straight through that. So that's why I'd encourage you to stay involved in your youth engagement, stay involved in the tough parts of town where these characters have got they've got choices to make, go this way or that way. One is disastrous, one
Mm.
is more encouraging. And they'll need people like you at a really important stage of their life, sort of, especially young boys, sort of 9 years old to 18. They'll
Yes,
need
I do.
characters like you to guide them. So it was pretty obvious to me when I met you that you have a lot of power available to yourself because of your authenticity. To just apply it in any way that you can. Anything as a contribution. It's
Mm.
there's a quote that guides me well. If you'd have probably heard of a guy called Martin Luther King.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I've never met him. Obviously, I've never. I just read a lot and read a lot about people like him characters. There's one of his quotes that guides me well, uh, and it also keeps me patient because I'm a naturally impatient person.
I
But
wouldn't
his
say. I wouldn't think that the way you carry yourself and speak. Yeah.
oh no, I want it all done now. Get on with it. Let's go. Let's go. But he's learned an awful lot in his experiences, And the quote is something like, forgive me if I've got this inaccurate, but it's something like the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Yeah, I remember that.
And my interpretation of that is we just keep going as best as we can towards a better progressive society. And that utopia that we aspire towards is beyond our own lifetime.
Yeah, definitely.
And once you appreciate that, then you realize it's not about you then. It's not about your experiences that are relevant. They're only relevant to you. The trick is to how do you make it relevant to someone else who's younger than you that can be inspired by that or give thought to that. And that's where I would look to someone like you as well. Actually, you're probably more powerful than I'll ever be. So it was
No, I
more.
doubt that. I doubt that. I doubt that. I'm trying, but I doubt it.
That's your humility shining through there. So yeah, you touched on something interesting. I wouldn't say it upset me. Here I was on that day. I didn't know anyone. I knew Alice. I've got a lot of time for Alice Loving, one of the team there. I didn't know anyone else. I flew down because I was interested. I was invited. I flew on my own budget. That's no problem. I found you on time. It's pretty good, unsupervised. That's unusual. Uh, and I listened, and I met some wonderful people, and I listened to everyone's experiences and their conversation. And what struck me as a theme is the very language is important, as you know. And as soon as you consider yourself or title yourselves or claim yourselves to be workers, then some people, because of our bias, will treat you as workers and they'll put you down on this level of society. When actually, what you're really doing is making massive difference in someone's life every day.
That's true. That's true.
In a very hostile environment with loads of constraints and loads of emotions and huge pressures, but you're making a difference in a very positive way. That is pure leadership there. Someone who's doing that work has a care for a greater good, or they wouldn't be doing that sort of
They wouldn't
work.
be doing this, definitely. Definitely.
These jobs are not necessarily well paid. They're not easy. They're not easy paper rounds. It's tough. You're right in the trenches there. Well, that's where leaders are born. That's where it happens. You have the grit comes there. So if all it needs then is to allow you to get to the audience that you want and have your story heard across all strata of society, especially in government, well, an easy way to do that is just change the word from social workers to social leaders, because that's what you are.
Mhm.
And suddenly you attract a different audience. You don't lose the other audience, you've got them because they get it. But you're getting into where policy is made, crafted, shaped, funded. And if you're not operating in that space, you'll be just seen as noise,
Yeah, of
know,
course. Noisy
risk
neighbors,
there.
definitely. Mm.
And that's not actually true to what your needs are. You've got a great story, and I would want that to be heard. So it I was really inspired. Some of the young characters there that are on the stage, or either participating or directly contributing. Some of the young characters there, uh, you'd want them in any team in any sector of society. These are natural, talented people that have clear leadership strengths. But they're not necessarily seeing themselves as that. And I felt that was a bit of a shame, actually. So if my couple of words that I foolishly said gives people a way to think about, your true purpose here and where you really fit in, and a bit of encouragement to keep going and punch through these barriers that get in the way, then you punch through, true to Martin Luther King. That arc bends. You just got to keep pushing it
Keep
and bending
going.
it.
Mm.
It's
That's
steel.
true.
It's not
Yeah.
iron. It won't break. It's humankind. It's steel. We can do incredible things if we bring ourselves together to a common purpose.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
so that's really, it was more you inspired me than anything else. Actually, it was the other way
To be
around.
fair, that's why I reached out to you afterwards because have you spoken to Dr. Addis since then?
Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. She asked you to join the Disruptors Network.
Yeah, but it's more. I think if I'm hesitant on anything, and I'm happy to join anything if I think the cause is purposeful and powerful. But I never want to lead these things. I always want to be in the support. Well, by leadership to me is, contributing to creating an environment that allows people to deliver to their potential. That's what I think good leadership is.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Have you got the tools? Have you got the space? Have you got the funding? Have you got the environment that allows you to feel safe and operate to freely to where you want to go to? That's what I think is my job as a, if some people think that's a leadership role, but I tend to do it in a passive way, in a supportive way, in a shepherding way rather than a pulling way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm naturally very empowering, and I'd look to people like yourselves and Alice to say, well, look, this was your initiative. Don't let people hijack it. You go for it, and I'm walking with you. It's a sort of another quote that guides me well is, never above you, never below you, always beside you.
Yeah.
So I'm interested where you go. I'll walk with you there.
To be fair, when we had the meeting after the official meeting, in a more informal environment, I told him what you said about the funding aspect. But I know Dr. Alice, she has a kind of program where she does the analysts parenting stars for people that have been
Yep.
exposed to child services and been monitored.
Yep.
But she said she wants to expand that work. So I said, in order to do that, unless we self-financed through employment or the small enterprises we're part of, you'd never be able to do that. But then obviously we have our responsibilities at the same time, our own families, our own
Right.
overheads. So I said, I think we should create a membership. Like people have a Netflix subscription, Amazon Prime subscription. So if we all paid into that, but she said she's not sure how she would be able to get people to do that on a consistent basis, considering the
Yeah.
cost of living crisis. So I said, look, Mr. House is been in the high echelons of society, the APPG within Westminster. You know him. I'm sure he could provide you advice on how to acquire that kind of funding or meet the people that will be willing to contribute as a philanthropist to the causes that we're passionate about. So I said that she should have that discussion with you and maybe the people that are around you that are interested in social justice and a balanced society where everyone prospers.
Yeah, there's two things on that that might be of interest. Firstly, how I met Alice, which was a, a I don't know, 18 months or so ago. I found her she was attractive to me because she was doing something important. But when I spoke to her, what frustrates me a lot is that she loves what she's doing. She's good at what she's doing, but she's not necessarily funded to do it, not in an easy way.
No, 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 no.
So half of her day is spent going to people, generally with clipboards and suits, as I call them, asking for funding. Well, she doesn't love doing that. That's not necessarily what she's brilliant at.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if there was a better way to help her do that. And we looked then at what is it that she's doing that's brilliant, that gives us a great story, and how can commercial companies, the commercial sector, the public sector, the private sector, how can we adjust our narrative to come in with her using our ESG budgets, our environmental, social, and governance structures, our corporate social responsibility needs? Why don't, because we want to do that and we need to be seen to be doing that, well, if we're going to do it, then let's make it count. Well, let's start funding people like Alice directly.
Definitely. I agree.
So that Alice doesn't have to go to the public bodies to say, I need some cash, which are always going to be under pressure. Alice can get a budget line straight away in April. Right, this is the next 3 years. Here's how much you said you needed. Off you go. Come and see us in 2 years. Tell us how it's going. Tell us when you need more. Effectively, a pure leadership partnership. So, and we're still working on how do we do that? How do we move the system around to allow people who are brilliant at what they do just keep doing the brilliant stuff then. Don't get distracted or diverted with noise, as I call it. And we're looking at other ways to do that. So that's how I met Alice. That's point one. Point two, how do I think we're in a brand new world that allows us to think more innovatively like that? Is because we live in a digital space. It's
Mhm.
the first space ever that's completely connected
It
now.
is.
There are 8 billion people on the planet.
Mhm.
And I grew up in a world, again, another quote you might have heard. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You know
Yeah,
that quote?
definitely. Yeah, of course. My dad used to tell me that as a youngster, and I think he was being a fossil at the time. But as I've got older, I realized my dad was right. Yeah, absolutely
Well,
right.
yeah, but he was right. My dad said the same. I'd say the same. I think that was right in the analog age.
Mm.
But what's different now is the digital age. I'd go up a bit in terms of what your father said. He was right for the environment at that time. The environment that you're in has changed. So to me, it's not about what I know and who I need to know. It's more about who don't I know that I need to know. And our relationship is a classic of that. I'd never met you until I went to that conference.
Mm.
I only went to that conference because I met Alice through the digital space. I get to the conference. A lot of the conversation happens in the digital space after the conference. You and I hook up. That's so, and you're someone I need to know because you're going to be fascinated to see where you
You're
go in life.
flattering me.
You know?
Mm.
So I just use that as an example. There are 8 billion people out there that I don't know, but I pretty much there'll be some of them I definitely need to know because they're going to allow you to get to where you want to go to. They just don't know you yet. You don't know them yet. So if there's truth in any of that reality, that tells me the narrative is really important. What is your story? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do with it? And who gains from doing it? And once you get that story tight in the digital space of a 40-second bandwidth, that's all people of appetite we have, or in a one-page summary that we can distribute, get that narrative sharp, and you bring people with you. You mobilize that way. It's like a fifth century general on a hill would inspire the soldiers in a 1 minute conversation that will get them to do some pretty dangerous stuff. It's the same now. We're not necessarily wanting you to do dangerous stuff, but somehow you've got to inspire people to come
Yeah.
in with you on a journey
Mhm.
somehow.
Yeah, definitely.
And yet here you are, and the people that were there on that day, they're all doing inspirational stuff. Their stories are amazing. Well, I'm not hearing them.
Mm, it's
I only
true.
heard them because I went there. But I want other people in that room. It's everyone in that room pretty much knew that story because they're all in it together. Well, project that story in a more professional way, a more intelligent way, a more powerful way, so that people who wouldn't think about social care and funding it start thinking about it
Mm.
because it impacts them directly or indirectly. It impacts society. So why would you not want to be involved in that conversation? It impacts everyone. If it's publicly funded, well, everyone's funding it. I'd want to know where that money's going,
Go in,
and
of course.
if it's being sent, well, and if there is enough there, because you
Yeah.
probably want more. Okay,
Mm.
so that you create those conversations in a digital space really easily now on platforms. LinkedIn, I think, has got opportunities for that. There's loads of opportunities these days for people to get their story out there, and that's how you mobilize. There's an energy, and once you start feeling it, people go with you when they
Mm.
feel it. So that's why I think your generation is in a really amazing position in life because these are uncharted waters. There's no rules.
Mm.
We've never explored it yet. So
Yeah, definitely.
it's almost to me like in the 15th century on a ship going around on an ocean thinking, when am I going to fall off the world? Whereas someone would think, I don't think it's flat, actually, I think it might be round. And
Um,
you'd be ridiculed.
of course, it would be really, yeah, cool. So at that time you can understand. That's what happens with advancement of knowledge when we're in our ignorance and we strive to discover and push the boundaries and think, oh, some of these things are just fallacies. They're not actually true, it's just more belief. Mm.
Well, beliefs are fascinating, aren't they? Our belief systems when we grow up, the formative years. But something else that struck me as really important when we spoke, very in a sort of organic way. There was no agenda to it. I think I just said, "Do you want a cup of coffee?" It was as simple as that. It grew that way.
Mhm.
A sort of what are you doing here? And you told me a bit about your experience with the family court systems.
hmm hmm
And then I would look at that and then expand that into the criminal justice system. And I think how dysfunctional that is,
It is. It is.
with all the people in it and all the people it impacts, to recognize it's dysfunctional and causing a lot of harm gives me a real burning passion to get not so much involved in it, but better understand it because it's just problem solving. Just an example of that, when I compare the civilian judicial system to the military judicial system, which I think is truly awful as well.
It is.
Um,
Okay.
yeah,
I
well,
watched too much
but
Jack Reacher. That's why.
yeah, so because I put that out there in the public space and said I think it's rubbish, the director of the military legal system, the judicial system, gets in touch with me.
Okay.
I said, hey, Mr. House, eh, I respect your point of view, but actually, my point of view is really different. Why don't you come and see me for a chat one day soon, and I'll show you what it's like? And so that's what's happening right now. In the
Okay.
next week, 10 days, I'm going to go and meet him in Wiltshire, I think it is, with a very close colleague of mine, a professor of psychology, because we want to understand it.
Hmm.
And this would never have happened unless we lived in the digital space. I wouldn't know him. He wouldn't know me. We'd never
Oh,
hear
so
each
this
other's
was
voice.
online. It wasn't actually a face-to-face meeting.
No, it's all happened online. Yeah. I
Okay.
said something online. He didn't like it. Very professionally, he didn't just respond and say, "You're talking nonsense." He sent me a private note and said, "Why don't we come and meet for a cup of tea?" Excellent. And that to me is a really good example of collaboration.
Yeah, but he's obviously yearning. You see, with that, he's yearning to find out what's behind your mind, and he's obviously looked at your profile. I don't think he would do that with just anyone, because I've seen that
Well,
there's still a hierarchy of all that. It's
yeah,
like,
without a doubt, I accept that. But because I'm lucky enough to be seen that way, especially when as age 16, I came from what society would say was nothing. Well, a later point in life, some would say, "Well, you're something." Right, then I'm going to use that ability to the best of my power to influence to what I think is encourage people to say maybe you could go that way. But the only way we'll get there is we go there together.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
So I'm not going to see this guy with a closed mind. I'm really wide open with, well, okay, let me help me understand why you think it's better. But I'm already coming at with a predisposition because he will naturally say, we deliver good outcomes. Sure.
You will, you will.
Well, that depends how you measure it because you can't take away the fact in the military that the military investigates itself by itself, for itself, to defend itself.
Of course, it's like marking your own homework at school. That's why it's
Totally.
so social care and social
Yeah,
services. You're
so
marking your own homework. You need someone independent that has
you
no
need independence
affiliations.
and an independent sense of mind. You need independence, free thinking. I'd encourage creative thought and critical thinking because any judicial system, in terms of the judgment of it, it's only as good as the evidence that's presented to it.
Mhm.
Well, if the evidence is so narrow, deliberately, you've already predetermined the outcome. The court is just a function then of your
Exactly,
strategy.
exactly,
And it's the
exactly.
same in the family courts, you'll see it the same. And that's where you start getting interested, as you've recognized, in power with hang on, this isn't quite what it's supposed to be.
hmm hmm
What's going on here? And that's why I think the world is incredibly dangerous at the moment because of the digital space, people are becoming more informed than ever before, are asking more intelligent questions than ever before in a way that's never happened before.
Mm.
And power, the power base, my sort of peers in power, they don't know how to handle that.
Of course, no. It's that's why. To be fair, I had another lady, very similar, charismatic like you, called Sally Ann Veris. As she said, Sean, you got to be a critical friend. That's when I kind of learned to rein it in when I used to get, emotionally charged and said, "Oh, this is useless. This, what are you doing? I don't know how you're in this kind of position running this kind of show." And she said, "Remember, Sean, you got to be a critical friend. That's the thing." He said to prevent offense and offending people's sensibility. So this is why I like to put a certain position with certain character traits in those spaces. See, so someone like you, I'd be comfortable and said, listen, if we could get Mr. House to represent us here, and we said this is what we want, and let him negotiate like a diplomat, like diplomacy. You do need that. Some people they're not suited to it because they become charged emotionally.
Yeah, well, hey, I would. Many people would say I'm incredibly emotional and incredibly passionate. People often feel that, but what I've learned is that's not actually relevant. What's relevant is how you channel that
Mm,
and to what objective, and therefore your language matters
mhm,
and how you communicate really matters. But I don't remember going anywhere near my education experience for 14 years of my life. I don't really remember anyone sitting me down to help me learn how to communicate
mhm.
or how to think or how to critically challenge. That never happened. That came in a different part of my life. But once you
But the
start learning,
experiences, your
well,
experiences. That's why. Imagine that Royal Air Force pilot, APPG special advisor, all the
well,
experiences in your life, you've learned that.
yeah, I guess where I was really lucky is once I got into sort of the more advanced part of flying, and now you realize, as much as I love flying and it's a lot of fun, sure, but actually that's not the job. The job is you're going to be operating a platform, a capability that has a purpose, which probably means that at the end of your thumb here, you've got a trigger or a button that can cause incredible harm to someone. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You might want to question the intelligence picture to make sure before you do what you're trained to do, you make sure that you're right on the button, excuse the pun, to make sure that this is all legal, it's all correct, it's all right, whatever right means, because that's your responsibility. So there's why do I mention that bit is I've been incredibly privileged to have that sort of training and investment in me over much of my lifetime. And yeah, I'm going to use it then. Now I've got some appreciation of it. I'm going to, as best as I can, contribute to the needs of others. And that's where I met you with, wow, here, this guy listening to you should be, if you don't mind me saying, you should be in a lecturing way. I don't mean it that way, but you could do an awful lot of powerful stuff with the youth of today talking about what's on their mind
Mhm.
because you have a natural way of connecting and listening. A really skilled way of doing it. Don't underestimate that. Many do not have that. You have that. So go out and find out what's going on, get the mood of the youngsters, and
Mhm.
use your experience of life saying, well, yeah, I can see why you might think that, but the dangers of that thinking might take you there when
Yeah,
maybe you want to
mhm.
think that way. Youngsters, as you know, they don't like being told what to do,
Yeah. Of
but
course,
they
I was
do.
like that as well.
Yeah, we all are. But they'll think on it, and they'll as a measure they'll come back to you later saying, talk to me about that again. It's and that's how you contribute to the Martin Luther King philosophy. You're helping that arc bend
Mhm.
somewhere.
Mhm.
So that's why it was a really privileged opportunity for me to just listen to you with, wow, this guy's got an experience of the family court system that I've never had. I've got very little understanding of that. Right. What can I do to help you then meet the Minister of Justice?
So I'm trying to bring people together in terms of the mission because what happened a lot of the time, I noticed within this kind of part of society, we work in silos. So I said, look, working in silos affects the outcomes and slows down things. The bureaucratic machine is already slow as it is. So I said, like you said, I said if once we establish need and inspire people, he said it should be a snowball effect. So we should be coming together, adding more people with the skills and abilities and who they kind of network, and we come together with illustrating the same values. They said there's no way we won't succeed. It's just a matter of when, not if. Now I know some people because of the journey they get discouraged. I said, but we can't because I said if we do, then we just go back to square one, and then the next generation has to start again from ground zero instead of building on the platform that we provided. And for me, that's a key thing, and that's where we go wrong. Because even since then, I've tried to get all of us to meetups in September, and even though they put me into the Disruptors WhatsApp group, we've got a WhatsApp group now. You're not part of it, are you?
Not readily, no.
Yeah, so
Probably a good
WhatsApp,
thing.
even though we've been messaging each other and said, "Oh, look at this nice video we had at the day," and that, I said that you do realize it's September now. I said since then, for instance, I said I got a little funding for running a domestic abuse pilot for 6 months. So I said I've
Wow.
connected with an organization called Merton Bain Voice to help support me there. Because I said obviously I've got no experience with that outside of my own lived experience. So I've had to do like a domestic abuse understanding and awareness course in that time, kind of multitasking. I was doing that as I was setting it up for to start in January. So that to find trainings and so forth. But I said if we had people from the network to come in, say um Akwazi Hagen, one of the panelists that was up there that I met through funny enough Instagram. But I used to work with his cousin at Meta. We was engineers dealing with the
Okay.
building fabric and the air conditioning, the electrical system, the emergency light. So it's
Yep.
through him that I met Nana. So I said this is what we should be doing a little and often, even if we're meeting say 3, 4 times a year, because I know everyone's busy on their own kind of mission and duties. But said if we can meet together more regular and then obviously bounce off each other with ideas, support one another's endeavors, I said no doubt we will succeed. I don't have no doubt about that. But as with humans, we have a self-sabotage, we have personal issues that hinder the mission, and then we kind of go, well, not sideline, but we go off on tangents. And then people said, "Oh, what happened? We're supposed to be doing this together, and then you've disappeared for a while, or you're not available." So I'm trying to find a way where there's at least a base level of activity that we're always pushing forward to the mission. Because this is how people get disheartened and thinking, "Oh, what's the point?" They got great ideas, great intentions, but it doesn't manifest into actual change and consistent deeds.
So everything you've said there, would you consider yourself to be a leader then?
Well, when I was young, when I was a player, let's say semi-pro football, I was reluctant because I knew from my parents that being a leader, there's a lot of responsibilities and pressures. And obviously, people look to you. So when you make mistakes or you fall down or you have questionable integrity, the people that pedestal will quickly be swept away from you and you become ridiculed. We see it all the time in politics. So I was very reluctant, but then for some reason people used to try and keep pushing me to do it. So as I've got older, become a middle-aged man now, I've more willingly take it up, but I also it's not something that I want to hold on to and be like, yes, I am the free, because it can be very draining and tiresome. So I always look for more collaborative partners because I don't want to be like I am the big I am, follow me, and that I don't mind doing it in maybe situations where it goes bad or people are frightened or they don't want to persist. That I don't mind say, come on, everyone, we can do it, but not day in day out. Say, for instance, I want to be prime minister. So I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. So I like to have a collaborative partnership where we have people of similar ilk, similar values, with similar work ethic, and I said together we can do it, and it shares the burden. Because a lot of people I notice when they're fighting for the leadership roles, it's usually because of massive ego, and they want to be seen to be like, yes, I've done this. These are my achievements. When for me, it's like kitchen floor titles and paper crowns. I don't really, um, well, not I don't really rate that, to be fair. I don't really rate that. I'm more of a person. If you see the opening, I guess you might have seen it on my when I do my videos. I've got William Wallace. I always like that from I used to watch that all the time as a teenager with my dad, with Mel Gibson as Braveheart, and I always found William Wallace fascinating. I said if I had friends like that, I said we could probably rule the world. You see what I mean? But as you saw what happened it may be dramatized by the film, but he was undermined by people on his own side betraying him. And then some people say, no, he's just a commoner. Why should he be leading? He should be listening to the nobles. So I always found that how do you navigate that and manage to align at the same time to be able to move forward without this kind of infighting and bickering that kind of brings down whole entire movements, even civilizations and empires.
Well, that's fascinating. That's why I work very closely with a whole team of psychologists to help us understand the human psyche and the drivers behind those characters. Uh, can I ask you another question? The way you talk there about your style of leadership, do you think many are similar in
Yeah,
their
the people.
leadership role?
Yeah, I think the people that I know, well, will not know, but I get along with and to have regular engagement with, they're usually like that as well. They're wary of the responsibility. and the pressures.
I,
But so they're
I'm
reluctant. But I know some people that said, yes, I
yeah,
want to be the leader and I should lead. Mm.
yeah, it's. I guess we're explaining there the difference between leadership as a function and authentic leadership as a purpose. They're very different.
Yeah, of course.
And
I get
often
you.
the best leaders we want are those who don't want to be leaders because their agenda is very different. It's not about them. It's
Hmm.
about everything
Others.
you say.
Mm.
And that gives what recognize there, please, that when you say that, it gives an energy that's very compelling. And you will build a team that way, a very genuine team, and you'll become more powerful than you would imagine. Keep that way. But there's just something that's useful, not so much for you or me, but for your audience there. There's a fundamental difference here that you've touched on. Um, can I just briefly explain what I understand between the difference between output and outcomes?
Hmm. Yes, please.
This comes back to a court or anywhere, any organization or system in the modern world, not just the UK, but all over the world. There are an awful lot of people involved in that system, whether it's in policy or planning or strategy, the system. And silos you've mentioned, they live in this, I just do this bit. It's not my job,
Hmm.
that's someone else's job. They live in that vertical bit. But that's because we're conditioned as a society to measure our life through activity, through output. What have you done today? And it really starts when you see the kids when they come back from school with, so what did you do today? That's probably not the best question because you're almost
No.
teaching them to measure on
Mm.
activity. It there's a I always think there's a better way if you look at outcomes which
Mm.
actually contribute to, and what difference did that make then?
Make
It was
exactly.
different to output. Output is like a hamster just going round and round
Run
and
around
round
in the
and round
room.
forever. Nothing changes.
Nothing
It's just
changes.
going, it's just noise. So
Exactly,
I've never
exactly.
been interested in output or systems or people that contribute to output because that's not going to change anything for the greater good. Outcomes, when you meet people like you who are interested in just the fact they understand outcomes that makes a difference to the life of someone or millions,
Mm.
now you're talking about an interesting leadership style because they get their contribution delivers at scale to a much wider purpose.
Hmm.
So there is a subtle but significant difference there. And most people aren't taught that because a lot of power systems, the last thing you'd want if you want to retain power is to empower people. The last thing
Exactly,
you want to do,
exactly, exactly.
you're going to give it all away.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was really lucky that, when I was given a very privileged command position in the military, my boss at the time, a really inspirational guy, said, "Look, you're going to become quite powerful now." And he gave me a couple of quotes, and he said something about authority.
Mm.
If you want to retain your authority, give all your authority away.
See,
And the more you give it away, the more you're like a scaffolding. You're bringing up your team to
exactly.
deliver on what your vision is, what your mission is. There's no prescription to what you're saying, but they're in your head because you've helped develop them. You've helped
To
and
develop
encouraged them
people. Hmm.
to be themselves.
Hmm.
That way. And so I'm very simplistic in the way I think. Look, I can't tell you how to do this, but see that hill over there. I want us to get on that hill in this period of time with what we've got,
Hmm.
because on that hill we'll see something amazing.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
we get there, I don't really care.
Yeah,
That's up to us.
that's a,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'll see you on the hill. Yeah, that's it. It's your mission and your job to get there in any way you want to do. But
Perfect.
that hill is the vision, whatever that hill is. And then you can, you put some words to it in a way that people might understand, or we put some pictures there. But
Mhm.
that vision, it really, I think, helps you define your purpose, what you're doing on this planet, why are you alive,
Definitely.
what are you here for, do you think?
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
that
I
you have
agree.
to draw upon your faith, your sense of self, your sense of self awareness, your environment, the people around you, your belief systems. All of that comes into who you are
Mm.
and what you're going to do in the time that you've got, whilst not knowing how long you've got.
Yeah. Hmm.
So every day contribute to some sort of outcome that's actually helping this world contribute to a more progressive society every day. That is the mission. Why else are you here? Is it just to get up, pay the bills, and die? Is that it?
Exactly, exactly. And I've always struggled with that from a youngster. But the thing is that from what I've told, obviously my own personal experience, I can't speak for everybody. We're not a monolith. But well, what I find that that kind of mentality, that kind of character person is rare. It's rare than precious metals.
They
So
are a bit.
I'll spend years trying to find people. Said, yeah, we're on mission. We're gonna do that. We're gonna be consistent. We won't stop until we achieve it. I've seen it. So it's like seasons of life. Spring,
Yeah,
summer, autumn, winter, and then some people they're not all weather. Like Ron Seal does what it says on the tin, all
not
weather,
all that. Yeah,
varnish.
that's fine.
There's
Yeah.
some people that well, to be fair, most people that I've met are not like that. So this is
Yeah.
where people get discouraged and think, what's the point? I've been striving to achieve this. It's not gonna
But
happen.
that's okay. That's okay. I think it might come down, from my own experience from sharing it. It's I think there's a lot of fear-driven behaviours that lead us towards output and just activity instead of outcomes, which require a more fearless approach. I've been really lucky in some of my experiences where sadly I've lost some people along the way, some close friends didn't quite come back with me. And
Mm,
if they did, they weren't the same characters.
mm, mm,
Once you realise that you're not here forever,
mm,
you're here for a period, and something or someone else will decide that, not you.
exactly.
And that's where your faith comes in. I think once you embrace that, and effectively once you accept your own death, your
Mm,
own sense of mortality, once you are sit peacefully with that,
hmm.
you then become fearless in the way
Yes,
that
yes, yeah. I've seen that. I've seen that. Definitely, definitely. Yes.
now I don't really care.
Mm,
I'm not worried about the risk of doing this. It doesn't mean I'm reckless, but I've factored it in. What's the worst that can happen?
mm.
If the worst that can happen is someone thinks bad of me or I get beaten up by doing it, but it's still the right thing to do,
Do.
then I'll do it.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
just keep
exactly.
going.
See.
Because I'm not scared.
Yeah, see.
If that's the best you've got, let's go for it then.
Mm.
And
Well,
that's how I think.
you should come help me. You should come and help me with Equal Start, then, Mr. House.
I'd be
Yeah.
delighted to help you anyway. But that's how you start contributing to performance.
Mm,
You have to be emotionally aware, emotionally strong, emotionally resilient. And
mm,
that's why a lot of my work in the last 15 years or so has been continuing to help young people develop that sense of self, sense of care, compassion, things that are natural to us as humans,
mm, mhm.
that become normalized in your formative years. Before you become more of an adult and you
No,
become sharp and
sure.
bitter and angry
Bitter, yeah, of
and
course,
rageful.
exactly. From their bad experience, it scars them. That's right.
And then years later, you've got to unlearn that.
No, no,
And
no,
not
of
everyone
course.
can unlearn that.
Not
And,
everyone, no, not everyone can.
and they've got that. But
Exactly. That's
our
exactly,
strength.
exactly, exactly. Mm,
So that's what's because I understand that when I first met you, I thought, this guy actually put him in with a bunch of young people right now, aged about 11 to 15. He is going to have a massive positive influence on them because of your experiences. They will never forget that.
mm,
And you might be the only person in their lifetime at the moment that's actually even thinking like that or bothering like that.
mm.
There won't be many like that. So if you're
No,
one
there's
of them,
not.
I'm actually going to encourage you to get in that space.
Mm,
For the time that you've got on this planet, go and do that. It's almost a sort of modern pilgrim, I guess, in that way,
mm.
without any sort of Christian sense to it.
Yeah,
But
funny you say that. I'm part of the remit that I want to do when I expand Equal Start is the not in education, employment and training, the NEETs. That's one of
yeah,
my programs I want to eventually develop. But because of the domestic abuse thing came up, and when I was in the council, I said, "Oh, since you're complaining, and why don't you try and run one of these services for us?" I said, "I've got no experience with that. Obviously, personal experience of abuse, but not of terms of training people and leading people or hiring people to provide courses and raise awareness amongst members of the public." But they said, "Oh, look, if you do that." and you mention and you actually carry out the things that you talk about, it said then you can run the program how you like. So I was shocked. They gave me a small funding. They said, "Oh, would you run a pilot for 6 months?" So I'm
Cool.
gonna try and undertake that from January. I'm just trying to put it together now. But well, if that goes well, I'm gonna try and see if I can, like you said, go into the NEETs program because, as you said,
Yeah.
it's easier to help young people in the formative years than people that have maybe got entrenched thinking, inflexible, and
Yeah, totally.
they've hindered by scars and bad experiences that they can't really get past as elder people.
You got it. No, well, that's brilliant, isn't it? Someone's clearly felt the same energy that I felt when I met you, and they're prepared to take a punt on that and see how it goes. But it's without a doubt, I think one of your many strengths would be in that area, um, because you're direct. Especially, one of the areas that I'm working on with some mates who are interested, I guess, is we're wanting to redefine masculinity in the modern day.
Hmm.
We want to help young boys, in their sort of, let's say, sort of nine onwards as a rough age group, but that sort of demographic all over the world. With okay, ask yourself the question: what sort of man does the society need?
Hmm.
What sort of man does society want? And they're different.
Hmm. Hmm.
What sort of man do you want to be?
Hmm. Hmm.
And what sort of man do you need to be?
Yeah, definitely.
And they all have subtle variation there. But if you're not thinking that as a young boy, you're not in control of your own destiny then.
Yeah, you're not.
Well, most young people, when you tell them that, I reject that. Okay, so what are you doing about that? And
Mm.
that's where the critical friend bit comes in. These are focused questions. I'm not going to accept. That's just an excuse. I'm not accepting this.
Mm.
I see your behavior. I'm not judging your behavior. I'm not going to call that out. I'm trying to understand what's behind that.
Like that. The causes, yes, the
What are
causes.
you needing? Because if it's a loving, safe environment, I'll contribute to that. If it's a positive, powerful role model, I'll introduce you to that. But definitely, what I want you to do is live a purposeful, meaningful life that contributes to a greater good. Do that.
Mm.
That's how I believe you'll get an inner sense of self and an inner sense of peace. And a lot of
Funny you
people
say
I've met,
that.
they
When
fight
you was
themselves.
in the Royal Air Force, the military, and you maybe had someone that had the potential to be like that, but day to day they struggled with actually being purposeful. They might, had vices or behaviors that were flawed, like most human, all humans. How would you get them to try and transform that, especially if they were like, oh, 1 minute they would say, "Listen, I'm going to follow you with that. I agree with that," but then they'd fall down. So it'd be like a roller coaster journey. 1 minute they'd be all right doing behaving like that or living purposefully, and other times they said, "Oh, I can't be bothered with all that. It's too much."
It can
How
be.
did you get those people on side?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the objective is to get them on side. It's to help me understand them. I
Mm.
think as a commander, that's part of my role. Is I need to understand what's going on in here. I give you one example. Is because I was at that particular level, I'd be responsible for a lot of discipline-related issues. What we would loosely call bad behaviour, and the administrative team comes in with this is the book and this is what we're going to do to this person,
Mm.
soldier X, for example. And I would think, okay, so what am I supposed to do? So you're supposed to sit there behind your big desk and your big pen and with your big hat on and just read this and tell them to march out. Okay, noted. Thank you. What's the guy's name or the girl's name? I just want to know their name, not their rank. Just what's their name? Thank you. Just bring them in and I'll make them a cup of tea and we'll sit
Okay.
down
Okay.
because I'm not going to do that. I
Yeah.
want to respect them and understand them without judging them and find out what's led to that.
Hmm.
And that's when in that conversation you disarmed a lot of their fear. You try and level, reach out to where they are. Not you can't possibly get to where you are at that time. You want to find out where they are. And that requires a very different approach than one of punishment or permission. It's invitational. And then you find out over time, you find out who are you and what do you want to do. And you'll probably discover they're not doing what they love doing. Well,
Yeah,
therefore,
definitely, definitely. I always
naturally,
discover that.
well, you're not going to get the best out of them then, and that's not to their advantage. So find out what is it they want to do, and then create an environment that allows them to do that.
Well, funny enough, you said that. I know a couple of people like that. Funny enough, with that used to volunteer with me and obviously work previously. Sometimes you'll have that, but then other times there may be flip flop, and that's the danger. This is where people get
Well,
disheartened because they
yeah,
said,
totally. But
mm,
there, my particular style anyway is, and by the fact I would bother to go to London to see people when no one's telling me to do that
mm,
is because I'm naturally curious. So
mm,
these characters that I might meet through that disciplinary environment, as one example, a month or two later, I'd deliberately go and see them
mm,
in their environment. Which is, oh hi, let's say it was Bill for whatever term. So Bill, hello, how you doing?
mm,
You want a brew? I'm making a cup of tea.
mm,
And then that what you're apart from saying hi, what you're wanting to do is how's it going?
definitely.
Because they're unlikely to go to you and tell you.
Mm,
But once you go to them and you show that I've stepped up and I've stood up and I'm still here and I'm not going anywhere, I've got your back. That's when they start feeling supported. You might be the first person in their whole life that they've ever felt supported by. So you're dealing with low levels of trust, low
hmm
levels of relationships. Once you
definitely.
start investing in that, the person starts taking a little more risk in themselves because they're feeling actually someone does seem to care. You might be the only one in their world that does that.
Yes, yes,
Well,
yes.
that's
To be
cool,
fair,
isn't
I've
it?
experienced that, but I've also been crushed by that as well. When I think, oh, look, they might make. Do you ever have you ever seen Star Wars?
Bits of it, yeah.
Empire Strike Back, the second one, when I was little. I think
What
actually, I
happened?
was born actually it was the year I was born that the film. But I always liked it when Yoda, I don't know if you know the scene, he told Luke Skywalker to lift up the X-Wing out of the swamp with the Force.
Okay.
And he said, you're very powerful in the Force like your father, I sense it on you, but you need better training and there's a bit of fear in you, so we're gonna need to overcome that, prevent you from turning to the dark side. So when he started to lift it now, you could see the hope in him, like, yes, he's doing it. And then I don't know if he overthought it, he sunk back into the swamp.
You
And he
will.
said,
You
"Oh," he
will.
said,
Yeah.
"Look, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Because obviously Yoda's been supporting him and teaching him for a number of months, just one on one mentoring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he says, I don't believe it," because Yoda ended up lifted out of the swamp himself. He said, "That is why you failed." So even though he had the support, Luke, of a Jedi Master that helped him, teach him how to use the Force, he hadn't quite reached that level yet. So, and then when he did start to do it, he said, "Oh my word, I'm actually doing it," and then he failed, and then he couldn't
Yeah.
understand why. And then Yoda told him it's because you didn't believe. That's why you failed. But you could see the disappointment, you could see the hope in him, and then he dropping back into swim. He said, "Oh look, he's not ready yet," and I've encountered that very much a lot in life, especially in my friendship circle and family and the people that I've tried to do progressive things with. So,
Uh,
and
Great.
that
Well,
must be ruining for a teacher or mentor when they see that, when they see someone's potential and they don't realize it and it goes to waste.
well, yes and no, really. It can be ruining if you allow it to be. Yeah,
Mm,
I'm in charge of how I respond to that. All it will tell me is the person just needs more support, more time, more effort to contribute to a sense of self belief. Some
mm,
need more time, some need less. It's
mm,
but goodness me, if you can't be bothered to help someone get there, what are
mm.
you doing here then?
Exactly, exactly. I agree. I agree. But you see, that's where probably you're more emotionally resilient than I am. Because over the years, some of those kind of setbacks, or obviously those relationships, I said, I've gone off on my own, have you ever seen Batman Begins when he goes off by
Yeah,
himself? Yeah,
yeah,
so I've done that myself over the years. Mm,
yeah. To be, I'm definitely an idealistic character, and I've got a bit of realism in there. I would expect to fail
mm,
10 times before I eventually succeed. So that requires commitment. Then, okay, I'll commit. If I believe in the person, and I tend to believe in humanity, I'll commit.
mm.
As long as that takes, we'll go there. I expect to be betrayed
Okay, okay. That's it.
because people have a different tolerance to fear and a different set of values. We're different. We're creatures. So I expect to be betrayed. I expect to be let down. I expect to fail. And once I've embraced that fact, you
It's a serious mindset, serious mindset.
you'll probably won't fail. You
Mm,
probably won't be betrayed.
Mm,
You will believe because you'll just keep going. And
mm,
once people sense that energy, they'll trust you more, they'll give more, and they'll then themselves will be prepared to fail because they know you're with them on that journey. So it's almost an it's not done in a conversation, that feeling, it's an energy. And we all give an energy, positive, negative, neutral, whatever. But I'm very determined in my lifetime, as long as I've got a breath in my life, I want to make sure I'm giving positive energy, positive support, and a sense of belief to someone to get to where they want to go to. I don't judge them on where they want to go to. It's
mm.
not my job to do that.
Yeah, it's not our job to do that. Mm,
I just try and use, okay, with my experience and whatever I know, what do I think might help and guide them on their journey? Because life is not life. I don't believe is easy, and I don't believe it's supposed to be easy. It's a
mm,
test. I've
mm,
always considered it to be a test, and therefore push yourself, test yourself right to the extremes, and then that'll become normalized. And actually,
mm.
this is all right.
Yeah, it's
Get used
true.
to
It's
being
true.
uncomfortable. It's not
Yeah,
that bad. Get on with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Then you become invincible,
Mm.
and that's not an arrogance.
No, no, it's
what
not arrogance. It's not arrogance. It's reality. It's like
you're.
doing when I used to do running. When I used to run 800 meters, it's a Jesus. My lungs are burning. I got lactic acid in my legs. But then the more I done it, the easier it became. Yeah,
It will
yeah,
hurt.
I
It's
agree with
supposed to
that.
hurt.
Yeah, I agree with that. Of course, definitely.
Yeah.
There's certain things I used to
I
find difficult when I was young that now I laugh at and shrug off like it was nothing. Where people said, "Sean,
Yeah,
but
you
you
have to
try and think
believe.
about that." Mm.
You have to believe, and it's easy for me to say that. Youngsters, they won't even understand when I say that, but to spend time with them and contribute to that, because then they can do amazing things if they want to.
Definitely, definitely.
They'll be unaware of their potential. They don't even. It's unrealized at this point.
Something like
Um,
that. Mm.
shall I share a short sporting story with you? Might
Yeah, yeah,
interest
of
you.
course. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I just shared one with you about popular culture and films, so that's fine.
There's a a guy who plays golf. His name's Ian Poulter, quite well
I
known to
know
me.
him. I know him. I know him.
And I think we're going back a few years now, but he was lucky enough to be competing in what's called the British Open, one of the major
Good
tournaments.
ones, yeah.
I think in Birkdale, which I could be wrong, but I think it's on the west coast, sort of Liverpool area.
Okay.
Could be wrong there, but it doesn't matter. And he's joint leading on the final day. Like this guy, and he gets to the final green, he's left with a 15-foot putt, like sort of 3.5, 4 meters. That's it. And if he gets this, he could win the British Open. Like, wow. That's all he set out to do in his life with this
Mm,
particular tournament. He's a
mm,
British guy. And so he's on the green now and he's looking at his putt and he calls his caddy over. The expert of golf is his caddy.
mm,
And his caddy thinks, why are you asking me now for my advice? You haven't asked me all day for my advice. Why are you asking me now? And the caddy comes over and he says, okay, stop now. And the caddy, what? He said, just stand there. Did you remember when we were 12 and we were playing golf on the sort of municipal pitch and putt or, the crazy golf with granddad and stuff like that? Do
mm.
you remember that day when we were 12? And every shot we took, we were imagining we were this putt for the British Open. Do you remember that moment? Do you remember that? That dream. This is the dream.
Mm.
And because I've got this belief, this ball is going in that hole, which is what happened.
Yes, yes.
Belief.
Yes.
It's belief. And once you get belief, and if we can educate young people to believe in themselves, and we can do that if we choose to do that, wow, this world has got amazing potential,
Of course, of
astonishing.
course.
And who would
That's the
not want to
spark
be
of
part of
mankind.
that?
Mm, mm,
Where does that take us?
mm,
And then you start getting into the world of I wouldn't saw dreams there, but that's how dreams become reality, and that's how miracles happen.
mm,
I don't accept the no philosophy. I don't believe the world is flat. Let's
mm.
go. Let's find out. It's adventure, and that tends to bring people with you on a journey because it's we start becoming more optimistic in how we live our daily lives, and that's how I think social work, in the nature of it, these are brilliant people doing it because it's tough. It's a tough
Yes,
gig.
it is, it is. It is.
So does any of that help?
Yeah,
Interest?
of course. Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. Of course it. You don't have to question that, Mr. Oz. You don't have to question that. Of course it helps. That's why I recorded this whole thing of Unheralded Heroes is to show people, say, look, there's people out there charismatic that believe in humanity, that want to help, and that they we can connect and combine with others to to make a bigger family and friendship circle to progress us as a human race. That's
Great,
the whole
excellent.
idea. Mm.
Isn't that great? Who would not want to be on that boat? Definitely.
Mm. Well,
Very
thanks very
good.
much for coming on today. I want us to stay in touch. Funnily enough, I was gonna ask you for maybe direct contact details via phone.
Yeah, I'll
Is that
send it
all
through. Obviously, anytime,
right? Okay,
24/7. Yeah, I
okay.
believe in what you do. I support what you do. Any way I can, I'll help out.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'll send it via the direct message on LinkedIn.
cool. Yeah,
All right.
cool.
Well,
Excellent.
thanks very much again for coming on.
No, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to shoot the breeze with you. Let's make it count. Go for it. The
Uh,
time that we have, keep doing your magic. Well done.
and when there's people, there is power. Justice in our time.
Yeah, keep the faith. Absolutely.